My children, Logan and Ava, were chatting happily in the back seat as I pulled up to the curb with the motor idling. Their joy on their first day of classes should have been contagious, but all I could feel was a knot in my stomach. I could already imagine her, Natalie, and I didn't need a crystal ball to predict what was going to happen. With Ryan by her side, cocky and prepared to throw his weight around, my ex-wife stood there like a queen assessing her minions. I was once. Again, the unintentional audience as they performed their characteristic maneuver. "Daddy, are you okay?" Ava's tiny voice jolted me out of my reverie. She didn't need to notice my stress, of course. Staring at me with innocent eyes in the rearview mirror, she watched as I contrived a grin. "It's your big day, remember, sweetie?" I spoke more steadily than I felt. To make it even better, I switched off the car, grabbed my bag, and stepped outside to assist them. In an otherwise tense moment, Logan and Ava's pleasure with their backpacks was infectious, creating a bubble of pure bliss. I was about to shut the car door when I noticed Natalie and Ryan. Their postures were stiff and their smiles were too big. Despite my stomach sinking like a stone, I maintained a bland demeanor. "Jason," Natalie greeted me, her voice brimming with fake civility. "What a surprise to see you here." I forced myself not to roll my eyes. "Where else would I be if I'm dropping? Natalie off at school?" She grinned, a gesture I'd once found charming but now found infuriating. "You know, some parents are late or preoccupied, so I wasn't sure if you'd be right on time. It wasn't a jab, it was a missile. She had been firing them since our divorce." Standing behind her, arms folded, Ryan wore that smug expression. It was the same sneer that always seemed to say, "I've got your life now and you're just a spectator." Logan and Ava, oblivious to the tension, turned toward Natalie as she shrieked with fake delight. Her voice, sweet and syrupy, lowered to their level. "Come here, my darlings. Did you, Daddy, make sure you have everything for school?" Logan nodded politely. Ava, on the other hand, glanced at me before hesitantly moving forward. My daughter was smart for her age, too smart. She could sense things no one else could. Ryan laughed, a sound that crawled under my skin, and I could tell Ava didn't, like the tone her mother was using. "It's so good to see you, Jason." Ryan's cocky tone made me grit my teeth. I forced my jaw to unclench as I replied, "I'm still trying, even after all this time." Natalie's eyes flickered with something. Was it amusement? Annoyance? "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice still dripping with fake innocence. "Oh, nothing," I replied. She brushed invisible lint off her designer coat, her lips curving into a condescending smile. "We're quite proud of your ability to manage." It was as though my entire existence was some kind of performance for their amusement. My fists clenched at my sides, but I didn't let them see it. They wanted a reaction, but I wasn't going to give it to them. Instead, I turned my attention back to Logan and Ava. "Come on, let's go," I said gently but firmly, guiding them toward the school. Behind me, Ryan's voice rang out, laced with derision. "Don't take it too personally, Jason. We're all here for the kids." I turned back, meeting his arrogant gaze with one of my own, a steady, unflinching stare. "I won't stoop to that level," I said evenly. "But it would be awkward if I made a remark about your upbringing." His smirk faltered just for a moment. I almost smiled. As I walked Logan and Ava to the school door, Ava hesitated. "Daddy, why does Mommy act like that?" she asked softly. I knelt down to her level, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "She's just being herself," I said. Ava didn't need to know the ugly truth, not yet. When I glanced back one final time, I saw a flicker of something on Natalie and Ryan's faces. For just a moment, their smug smiles wavered. Perhaps they'd realized that their antics weren't as effective as they thought. Straightening my shoulders, I turned and walked away, letting the tension roll off me. As I drove back home, the knot in my stomach began to shift into something else, something stronger. Natalie and Ryan could play their games all they wanted, but I wasn't the same man they'd known during the divorce. I was no longer merely surviving. I was thriving. And soon. They were going to see it for themselves. When I hit sin without you, I had a glimmer of pride, a sense that they might attempt to break me, but I wouldn't let them. That night, I locked myself up in my room, determined not to lose what I had worked so hard to build. They could take many things, but not the progress I had made. Despite it all, I couldn't help but smile. Ryan and Natalie had no idea. They thought we were all playing the same game, chess. But the truth? I was playing a different game entirely. It was a game of patience, foresight, and strategy. And while they assumed everything was in their control, I was busy setting up the board in my favor. Everything was ready, perfectly aligned for the next move. The investor meeting was scheduled for noon, but I arrived an hour early. Not because I was eager, but because I wanted to take control of the space. There's something powerful about being the first one in the room, about commanding the environment before anyone else has a chance. Natalie had always relied on theatrics and grand gestures to control the narrative, but she never understood the strength of the long game. I took my time organizing my materials, rehearsing my presentation, and practicing answers to every possible question they might throw at me. By the time the investors began to arrive, the space already felt like it belonged to me. As each person entered, I greeted them with a confident handshake and steady eye contact. The stakes were higher than ever, and I needed them to see that I wasn't just prepared for this meeting, I was thriving because of it. "Jason," Mr. Carter said as he sat down, "we've been hearing some positive buzz about your company lately." I knew exactly what he was referring to. Ryan's failed smear campaign. I couldn't help but grin. Their efforts weren't just fruitless, they had backfired. Investors love a good redemption story, and Ryan had unintentionally cast me as the underdog. With a calm, measured tone, I replied, "I believe the truth will always outshine rumors." The presentation went better than I could have imagined. I walked them through every aspect of my company, our revenue growth, market projections, and the key partnerships I had secured. They asked tough questions, but I was ready for all of them. When the meeting concluded, Jason, one of the investors, leaned forward and said, "This is incredible. I've seen a lot of pitches, but this feels solid." The others nodded in agreement. The deal was sealed. As I shook their hands, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. This wasn't just a victory, it was validation. But I wasn't finished. As I left the conference room, my lawyer texted me. Ryan's LLC was failing, buried under debt, losing supporters, and riddled with legal missteps. It wasn't enough to destroy him, but it was enough to damage his reputation. And that was all I needed. Normally, I would have skipped the PDA meeting at Logan and Ava's school, but this time I had a reason to attend. Ryan and Natalie would be there, undoubtedly expecting me to fade into the background as usual. When I arrived, the room buzzed with small talk. Parents exchanged pleasantries, teachers shuffled papers, and the principal tried to herd everyone into their seats. I spotted Natalie and Ryan at the front, laughing with another couple, oblivious to the storm I was about to unleash. When the principal finished her announcements, I raised my hand. "I'd like to share some exciting news," I said, and all eyes turned to me. Natalie's smile faltered just for a moment before she recovered. "I just signed a significant investment. Deal for my business," I announced, keeping my voice steady and confident. "This partnership not only secures our future, but positions us for major growth in the coming years." Polite applause followed, but I didn't miss the way Natalie's smile froze or how her eyes darted to Ryan for reassurance. He, meanwhile, looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. I wasn't done. "I also want to address some recent rumors about my company," I said. "To be clear, those rumors are false. The numbers speak for themselves, and my investors' support only reaffirms our stability and leadership." The room was silent. I could feel the tension radiating from Natalie and Ryan. They were cornered, and they knew it. As the meeting ended and people began to file out, Natalie approached me. Her usual poise was slipping, her tone overly sweet. "Congratulations on your deal," she said. "Thank you," I replied, my voice polite but firm. "It's amazing what you can accomplish when you focus on the truth." Her smile faltered, and she took a step back. Ryan didn't even bother coming over. He was too busy pretending to check his phone. That night, the ripple effects of my announcement spread through our shared circles. The narrative had shifted, and for the first time, I was in control. By the following morning, it was clear that Natalie and Ryan were scrambling to counter. Around noon, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Natalie. "Jason, can we talk?" I stared at the message for a moment, debating whether to reply. Natalie rarely reached out unless she thought she had the upper hand. After a few seconds, I typed back a curt response. "Busy. What's up?" Her reply came quickly. "Ryan mentioned some business conflicts. I think we should clear the air before things get messy." The irony was almost laughable. They were the ones who had tried to sabotage me, and now they were asking for peace. Curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to meet her at a downtown coffee shop that evening. When she arrived, she looked as polished as ever, but there was a tension in her posture, a crack in her confidence. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, as she slid into the seat across from me. "What is this about, Natalie?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She hesitated, then launched into a rehearsed explanation about how things had gotten out of hand. "Ryan may have overstepped," she admitted, "but it wasn't personal." I leaned forward, my voice firm. "Using my name and reputation to further his agenda isn't just overstepping, it's sabotage." Natalie tried to argue, to downplay Ryan's actions, but I wasn't having it. "This wasn't my mess to clean up," I said. "You and Ryan chose to target me, and now you're dealing with the consequences." For the first time, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. She tried to plead, but I held my ground. As she left the coffee shop, I knew this was far from over. Ryan's empire was crumbling, and I was just getting started.